make calls and get calls for free. Basically, make the internet truly a free internet, free telephony over SIP. There will be other features like security against hacking. Since we'll be at the first hop, always we will be able to catch malicious calls or spammers.
I was just going to ask Moshe. Now, how am I pronouncing your name? Is it Moshe?
Moshe, that's it.
Moshe. Okay. And it looks like Rich is coming in now. Hi there, Rich.
And do you all know each other before today? I know that David and Rich know each other.
I actually had a canceled appointment with Rich a year ago to meet, but we never met. I met David at a couple at Asterisk like 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
I wanted to mention some of the things that I know about you guys. And for example, you know, David Duffet is a chartered engineer, Asterisk specialist, telecoms professional, popular speaker, and trainer. I also thought it was interesting that David Duffet is a Ziegler Legacy certified trainer and the only UK-based trainer recommended by the Ziegler site. That's something, a couple of new things you don't know about him, you know? And then Rich Tehrani is known as, to me, as one of the top leaders in IP communications and technologies for several decades. But he doesn't look old enough for that.
Oh, you're too kind.
He's TMC CEO, IT Expo, he's very famous for that, and Apex Technology Services CEO. His top 3 LinkedIn endorsement areas are cloud computing, VoIP, and software as a service. And his TMCnet blog and social network profiles are pretty popular among us in the IP communications industry. His Twitter feed at @Tehrani is pretty controversial but interesting. He has over 12,300 followers. He's also known for giving away more big money in cars than anyone else in the history of our industry. Now, Moshe, I just met him recently, I think through ClueCon, right?
Yeah.
Yes. What I found out is that he's founded 3 successful multi-million-dollar companies, and they're in the telecom space. A gentleman from Voice of Israel calls him the Jewish Steve Jobs. His services include cloud-based voice PBX phone systems available through certified dealers.
As I mentioned to David before, and I think I mentioned it to Rich a while back, that I'm working on a project that we have not yet launched, and we have not announced the launch date yet, on a platform that will allow VoIP, basically SIP-based interoperability free of charge. If a number is registered, we'll be able to call any number that is registered on the network, basically free of charge. There will be no per minute or connection fees on the communication, no matter on the geographic. Basically avoiding the telecom part of, taking out the telecom expense of SIP. At the same time, we have some added features that where we'll monetize the project, kind of. So.
Love to know how you're going to do that. Or is it going to
okay. We'll figure it out as we go along. But first, let's get all the project done and ready for launch, or at least ready to announce a launch date.
David and Rich, did you have anything else you want to add as an intro?
Yeah, my main focus right now is AstriskCon, the annual Asterisk get-together. That's why I'm here in Florida right now, in Orlando. And we've got the biggest AstriskCon yet in terms of speakers and tracks. We've got 5 separate tracks all going at once. We'll kick off tomorrow. And we've got more speakers than ever before. And it's strange. Asterisk has been out there now for 18 years. That's quite mature for an open source project. And yet its popularity and its kind of reach into the communication space, you know, continues at a good pace. And I think it's a wonderful example of the fact that it's still on a upward growth curve, that we have more people wanting to speak about it this year than ever before.
Cool.
David, I think that's you. They want to come see you. I don't blame them.
He's a nice guy, that's for sure.
Thank you for your kind words, Rich and Suzanne.
Well, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Suzanne Bowen, co-founder of DIDX, and now I have a leather jacket company, Suzati, and I'm actually on my way to Astricon. I'm in Funiac Springs right now. At the Best Western Inn, they let me use their business lounge, and I have to be finished before an hour because the Funiac Springs Pilot Club is going to meet here in a little bit. So, Rich, you have anything you want to add?
No, not just in terms of about myself. Is that what you mean?
Sure. Yeah. What's really important to you right now?
You know, I think what's important to me is what's always been important, and that is to try to help explore the new and exciting areas of technology that help businesses, and primarily businesses, but also consumers, just optimize their businesses, optimize their lives, communicate more effectively. I think what's really exciting to me is that we've seen VoIP more or less transformed communications, and now we're seeing a lot of focus on business transformation and how businesses are becoming more efficient. They're able to compete more effectively with the latest technology, and that entire realm of different services, product suites, software that allow companies to be more productive and to react more quickly, and to be honest, compete more effectively against the new entrants. If you look at what's happened in Silicon Valley, their goal seems to be to put every other business out of business. So companies have to react, they have to become software companies, and they have to compete more effectively, or they're gone, they're doomed. It's that simple. I mean, who would have thought, and just to give one example, who would have thought that companies like Ford and GM would get disrupted by an app that connects people with a stranger in a car that gives them a ride? Nobody would have thought that 5 years ago. But now car companies are literally scrambling, making deals with companies like Lyft and Uber, or whoever they have to make deals with to try to be relevant. And then on the other end, some crazy entrepreneur stuck a bunch of laptop batteries inside a car chassis and made an electric car, and now the entire industry has become electric, and that seems to be what everyone has to do just to be competitive, meaning that Germany and Detroit are behind the curve on two fronts. So they missed out on literally two technologies, and it shows you it doesn't matter what you sell, what you do, what you make, another company can disrupt you and will disrupt you. If you have a big enough market, you'll be disrupted. And if you're not transforming your business and staying ahead of the curve, you will be gone. You'll be doomed. So it's that simple. My 2 cents.
If you don't disrupt yourself, you will get disrupted.
There you go.
Kind of Apple is trying have disrupted with their iPod. They disrupted their laptops. Now with their watch, cellular watch, they want to disrupt their iPhones. So it's kind of where Amazon with Kindle disrupted the books itself.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Yeah.
If it's not you, someone will take you out. I mean, it's not even that you'll be disrupted. I mean, I think the proper way of explaining it is you're gone. And technology, it's a double-edged sword today, because not only, and I'm going to go off a little off topic here maybe, but it's not just transformation, it's cybersecurity. We saw what happened with Equifax. Equifax is whether we want to blame them or not, I guess we have no choice. It's really their fault. They had access to the most sensitive information of over 100 million people in the world. All of the information that will get asked by your bank or by anyone else who needs to personally identify you, and that information was leaked because they were lax in their security policy. So if your company is not on the leading edge of not just transformation and technology and new areas that you need to focus on in terms of software, services, IoT, but you also need to be aware that while you're doing all that, there are bad people trying to get in, and not just bad people. It could be an individual, it could be a cyber gang, and it could be an actual nation. Nations are now attacking U.S. corporations, trying to look for competitive advantage or trying to just take us down. So it's a new world. It's totally different than the way things used to be. And if you're a CEO or an executive in these organizations and you're not on top of all these trends, you're more or less going to be like sailing on the Titanic.
I guess you guys are actually explaining in part why Asterisk is getting so popular and maintaining its popularity, because it is effectively a tool of disruption.
Agreed.
When you think about the early 2000s, it was Asterisk that was very helpful in getting SIP adopted, because it was a kind of toolkit out there that people could use. And then we've seen that pattern repeat with WebRTC, with Internet of Things even now.
Moshe, have you ever been to an IT Expo?
I've actually attended a couple of IT expos.
Yeah.
I've attended IT expos. I've attended ClueCon, Astricon. David, we lost David, but it's conflicting with the holiday, the upcoming Jewish holiday. That's why I couldn't go this year. So I hope to be at IT Expo in Florida later on this year.
It's going to be really nice. It starts on Valentine's Day next year, so you won't.
Okay.
The weather's going to be nice. It's going to be in Fort Lauderdale. You want to share anything else about it, Rich?
There's a lot of exciting new stuff at the show, actually. We've got not only the traditional communications focus, but we've grown a lot in information technology, and we've got areas of focus which are new. For example, there's an SD-WAN portion of the event, which is brand new. It's an SD-WAN Expo, and we found that IP communications and SD-WAN tie in so nicely together. There's also an MSP Expo, so we've been very strong in the MSP and reseller space. We've kind of formalized it, trying to make sure that those companies now have a place for information and kind of a central hub, so they know that the show's for them. I mean, they've been coming anyway for it's almost 20 years now. See what other interesting things. We'll be doing Asterisk World again, which will be really exciting. So our event differs from Astricon in that it's more of, I guess it's more of a business event. So Astricon is more like an enthusiast conference, and hopefully David can speak to that as well. Whereas we consider ourselves more of an enterprise, open source Asterisk event. So that'll be awesome. There will be a telecom reseller week. Something called an idea showcase, which is very similar to startup events that you might see where they pitch and the judges rank. And then we have a business intelligence summit, which is new. That's a big area of focus. A lot of people have been asking us to add to the show, and we did. And then the other big thing is something called the blockchain event. And the reason why that's a big deal is that these public ledgers, blockchain, are being said to disrupt industry after industry. And in the early days, there wasn't too much interaction between telecom and blockchain, but it's becoming more, the two industries are becoming more tied together more closely. And so people will see a lot of benefit by being at the blockchain event. So the idea is basically you'll come to this one umbrella of IT Expo, and you'll see all these things underneath, which will appeal to you. And so you're getting a lot more than just a single event in one visit.
If you just type in VoIP acquisition every day on Google, you will discover a new one every day, at least one new one. And I actually read an article about it where they're being bought up. And so it makes sense that there are new people who want to come into the field. And each one is different from all the others. And I was thinking, oh, David, don't leave, okay? All right. David, I know that there's a component at Astricon this week where someone's going to help those figure out the basic technical, what they need to be an ITSP. But I know also you need the marketing component, because just because you have something really cool technical-wise, you got to make sure that you get it out to the people who would be interested. But tell us about that. What do you think about, people saying VoIP is dead and we need to just drop it and go on with new things, and here you are, you have a presentation how to start your own new ITSP.
Yeah, you need a collection of things, really. You certainly need those visionary people that are looking towards the next thing and the next idea and going to be the early adopters of new technology and execute it. But at the same time, you need people that are going to keep on keeping on, optimizing models based on existing technology. Otherwise, things will implode. And here at Astricon, one of the tracks we've got is a business track, which is all about kind of running your business based around Astricon. We've even got one talk about communications within the workplace. Because how often have you heard it said, if you've ever worked in a telecoms company, you hear people saying, you know, for a communications company, we don't communicate very well. So we've even got to talk about that going on. So we're trying to address that kind of broader thing. But, you know, I think the pronouncements of the death of voice are a little over-exaggerated. We're not going to be able to do without voice for quite a long time. Video, of course, has taken a very long time to get properly adopted into various sort of edges of communication, but that seems to be pretty much there now, and that's a bit of a focus this year on video, not only within Asterisk, but just in communications in general.
Factor, and the founder of Skype said that telecom is 100-year-old, and telephone numbers will be dead in a certain number of years, and it's still not dead. And it probably won't be in a short period. And I'm always saying the reason why it's not that is because nobody actually killed it. We're going to try to kill it. Basically, we're going to try to take it to the next step. We're going to try to allow custom SIP headers through the interface, through the proxy. There will be a lot of other things that can be added. Even end-to-end security encryption will also be able to we enabled end-to-end secure encryption through carriers because we're not going through PSTN. We have actual end-to-end control. We have certain ways how we research now the security protocols, what we use, or what would be the easiest way to implement things. But that's the end goal of where we're going.
All right. Talking of killing things, a few people have had it, or a few 1,000 people have had a go at killing fax, but it's refusing to die, isn't it? I would like to think it's on its way out.
Oh yeah, I really wish, but let me tell you, we probably have a couple of thousand active daily fax users.
But I was just thinking, the phone number just keeps on being needed for whatever reason. Like today, I thought Rich wasn't coming, so I was going to call him, and I called his phone number, you know, because it was the easiest way to reach him real quick, right? So,
especially in the U.S., we have some sequence of 3-digit area code, 3-digit NPA, and then 4 digits. It's like easy to remember, sequential kind of.
Yeah.
Well, and at the end of the day, you know, for all of the instant messaging and chatting and all that kind of stuff, just a little bit of voice-to-voice helps smooth the wheels of, or smooth the process sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. And in fact, that's really, Suzanne, just to answer your comment from earlier, why I'm also involved with the Ziegler people, because I never really knew whether I was a hardcore technical dude or a people person. And so I've always carried on throughout my career doing a bit of both. So I love the technology that's involved around Asterisk, but I also like interacting with people. And I notice that certainly at some of the conferences I've been to, some of the hardcore techno dudes are not quite given to speaking to other people and making presentations. And so it's part of my mission to try and set that right and try and help the geeks speak just a little bit better.
yeah, you're doing a good job on that. And I think Rich does kind of the same thing with the people from a lot of these corporations that join IT Expos. He helps get them to know each other. He has all the extracurricular activities, and he's always bouncing all over the floor and up and down the hallways, just like you, David.
Actually, but both you and Rich, Suzanne, I admire your amazing energy. Just looking at all the things you get up to often leaves me feeling slightly tired and wanting to have a lay down.
You always say that to me. I just want everybody to take that a little bit farther. Concrete ways to leverage WebRTC, AI, IoT, chatbots, the blockchain, you know, anything like that. How can voice over IP companies add that to their services or integrate it? And what kind of market could they go after? What are some cool new things that are being done with this by voice over IP companies that were traditional that way? What do y'all think?
I can jump in with probably the shortest answer first. And I really, Asterisk is kind of a building block in all of these things for people to use how they will. but some of the things I've seen happening in the world of voice is the ability to use not what's been said, but actually the way it's been said and the contents of the voice to judge certain things. In fact, even medical conditions in certain parts now can be identified by analysing people's voice. And so as we see various things starting to link up, the world of medicine and the world of voice is slightly coming together. A real-life example I know of is diagnosing Parkinson's disease earlier than you can by any other physical examination by analysing the voice. But some years ago, when I was working for a company called Aculab, and I used to work with Rich Wren as well, been working with Rich for a long old time in the world of communications, when we were talking about voice recognition, or what's known as SVI, speaker verification and identification. In other words, not recognising what's been said, but recognising who is saying it. At that stage, I sort of predicted in a half-flippant way that at some stage you would be able to analyse the voice of somebody on the phone and tell whether they were ready to buy from your contact centre operator or not. And I think we're very, very close to that now. I think I can foresee agents having a little kind of bar in the corner of down in the bottom corner of their screen. You know, when it goes green, that's when they go to close the sale. I think that, so rather than sort of technology for doing more kind of whizzy stuff in terms of SIP and things like that.
If a provider is focusing on what their customers need, for example, in Mongotel, our business is mainly, our end consumer is mainly small to mid-sized companies. Our resellers are mainly low voltage and security installers. We have a specific platform that handles low voltage and security installers' needs, their billing needs. We even do billing for their recurring revenue for their alarm system as a part of our services of the resellers, just to add niche markets. Or for small businesses that don't really need a full-fledged CRM, have some kind of notes, reminders, and ticketing, not a full ticketing system, but kind of relate a customer through their telephone number or through their contacts or through this way, and have these type of features. And it's not just features, because features never sell, but it's making their life easier. What can a company do to make their life easier in terms of technology? And you can look at it in terms of communication, but if your communication focus is mainly for small to mid-sized companies, try to solve small to mid-sized companies' problems. As David said, try to find a technique either within telecom or within other type of algorithm to figure out when to make the sale. These type of things. So this is our strong focus in Mongotel as well on the consumer level.
And Suzanne, it's a similar kind of customer that you're dealing with. You've got all these different kinds of technologies, and it's a matter of understanding the technologies, seeing how they tie into what you're used to selling, which might be IP communications. We talked about cybersecurity a little bit earlier. Some traditional communications companies are learning more about networking and cybersecurity so that they can sell bundled services. Office applications are another, I mean, it's bread and butter, but Office 365 or Google Docs, the Google suite of applications is another thing you can resell. So there are so many different things you can sell, and also it's kind of different based on where you are in the country. If you're in the Midwest and you have access to a lot of farms, for example, IoT and smart farming, getting to know how to sell and resell those kinds of products makes sense, because farmers can save a lot of money on water and fertilizer and other resources, and improve crop yields by implementing IoT. And then there's IoT in shipping, tracking, logistics. If you're around a lot of logistics companies, then you might want to consider those kinds of companies to resell. And there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of IoT specific companies out there. Then there's analytic companies that have to deal with all the data on the back end and they come up with solutions to allow different companies to optimize depending on the industry. So basically, it's education. You have to stay on top of the different industries and kind of see what weaves into what you're doing, what ties in with what your customers are doing. And the other thing is just keeping an eye on what your kids are doing. It might seem like the silliest thing that I'm saying, but it's not, because, you know, as some of us on this call know, that the communications that we're going to use tomorrow a lot of times are what the kids are using today. And Slack is an example. I mean, we've been seeing kids going crazy for texting for years and years, and eventually someone cracked that code in the enterprise via Slack, and now texting in the enterprise and, you know, omni-channel, multi-channel communications is now taken for granted. But, you know, it started from Slack's perspective as texting, and now some of the voice over IP vendors are going at it from a different direction. They're going into texting and trying to tie it all together. And we talked about video. David mentioned video, and video ties in. So we've got voice, video, text, email, all in one, you know, and then conferencing and all of that tied into one application or multiple applications that work together, and selling these as services to your customers and understanding them. I'd say the level of complexity now, it just grows exponentially every year, and you just have to devote time every day to stay on top of it.
Inside out that good that they can really solve the customer's problem. That's kind of ties in what you guys have said before in some way.
What has happened just recently, lots of things, but, you know, we've had a bunch of hurricanes in the southeast, and a lot of devastation, a lot of businesses in trouble. And I just wonder if you think that, how well did the communications industry, were we more prepared than in the past when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans and Hurricane Ivan, Pensacola, where I live? Or what do you think about what has happened just now?
I don't know whether people in general are better prepared, but what we do know is that the way telecoms has shifted towards SIP and things like that makes for better business continuity and disaster recovery. You know, back in the day, if you're on the end of a primary rate link and disaster struck, then you know, even if you've got another telephone system to plug in somewhere, you weren't going to be able to use your numbers unless you had a word with the friendly telco, where, you know, if they were up and running at all and got them to divert things. But in the world of SIP, it's as easy as just kind of setting up a new SIP server somewhere and registering against your numbers with a provider, perhaps like Moshe's got, and you're up and running. And so that's something where technology has been very, very positive. Of course, in terms of Asterisk, because it's got that kind of low barrier to entry in terms of being able to download it for free, that has served around the world in situations where people have needed to be able to get communications up and running at a low cost or no cost kind of price point. And I know one of Mark Spencer's favourite examples of this is over in, I think it was Uganda, certainly somewhere in Africa. People were using bicycle-powered Asterisk. They didn't even have stable electricity supplies, but they were able to use Asterisk by bicycle powering it to bring up communications. But sorry, to come back to your original point, I think we're in a much better position than we used to be for disaster recovery and business continuity, purely because of the way technology has moved to SIP.
We had one of those bicycle-powered devices at our conference. We had a VoIP developer conference back in Santa Clara some years back.
Remember it well, Rich. I loved it.
Yeah. Oh, great. I'm glad. And I had a chance to do some bicycling, and it was interesting. I mean, I guess it is what it is, right? If you're in part of the world where you don't have electricity and you want to communicate, that's how you communicate. What you do.
The funny part is, we are, one of our geo co-locations is in Florida, was in Miami, Florida, and we weren't down. We shifted the entire thing to our Texas colo, but we weren't down even for a second. So somehow it didn't affect. And that I can definitely say, in terms of human preparation, we're pretty good, because I remember Katrina, and I don't know if it was Katrina in New York. There was a hurricane back then, and we had some downtime in our colo. customers that weren't affected, but there was some downtime. But now it's pretty good.
David, you touched on it. Is cloud has, and Suzanne answered your question, cloud has really changed the dynamic for disasters, and allowing companies to have a flexible way to, let's say, take the communications that used to go to a phone on a desk and just forward it to some other vehicle, whatever it is, whether it's in an area like you are in a hotel lounge or hotel office, or your cell phone or whatever, assuming, of course, your cell towers work. And the reports I've seen, by the way, are that the cell towers in Puerto Rico weren't as well protected as the ones in Texas and the U.S. mainland in general, and so they didn't fare as well from the weather. So part of that, obviously, is if you build your cell towers to withstand 150 mile per hour plus winds or whatever the number is, then you're more likely to have communications after a natural disaster that involves wind.
Yeah, your answers were pretty much what I was thinking. We can thank everyone in our industry from Asterisk, the basis of a lot of it, to people like Moshe, who's an awesome entrepreneur, or like Rich Tehrani, who brings all the businesses together to make it all happen. So the reason that we like to sponsor or exhibit or be a media partner for all these different events is because we serve people and companies who, they are competitors. We're not a competitor for any of them. We help them, all of them, that we want to also provide them with information and opportunities outside of what we offer. And so we go to all these conferences, and like this year was my first time to OpenSIP. It was my 4th time to ClueCon, and it's going to be my 3rd time to AstraCon. I don't think I've ever missed an IT Expo since the year 2000, y'all.
That was my first TMC event as well, the year 2000, Washington, D.C.
Oh my goodness, that was where it was. Yes, that is so cool.
Well, I think the succinct way of saying it is, if you haven't been to IT Expo and you think you know what IT Expo is, you don't. We had 2 good shows. We consolidated them into one. We wanted to have one mega show, and we turned IT Expo into a one-time-a-year occurrence. And we now are the largest communications and technology show, which is not a single vendor show like an Oracle or something like that. We're the largest show, or at least one of the top in the entire country. Somewhere between 6,000 to 10,000 people come through the doors, and they're all buyers or resellers. And the breakdown is typically they're mid-size enterprise, some large as well, all the way on down to small, and resellers of all sizes. And we also are unique in that we have a lot of carriers coming to the show. And those carriers are typically really they're of all different sizes. But the amount of buying power that comes to an IT Expo is staggering. It's bigger than what you can fathom by just hearing, I guess, what's happening in the industry in general. Like we hear things like, oh, voice is dead, voice is dead. IT Expo is setting attendance records, and I think part of that, I give a lot of credit to my team that keeps adding new things to the show, like a focus on MSPs, a focus on SD-WAN, a focus on cybersecurity, or some of the other areas that we're focusing on. And I think at this point, attendees know, buyers know, if there's something that they need to know about, it's going to be at IT Expo. We're also fortunate in that the South Florida location draws a massive audience from South America, the Caribbean, Europe, and ironically Canada. I mean, people from Canada like to go to Florida any excuse. It's February, it's in South Florida, so the timing's really good, and it's become an international mega event for buyers. And that's why when you talk about why do people want to sponsor it, because they don't get the bang for the buck that they get at IT Expo at any other show. I don't care what it is. And again, I'm not saying anything here, David, about vendor events like an AstraCon, which is single vendor. They're all great shows, but we are an independent show where you can see everything. We're not just one vendor versus another vendor. Obviously, we also believe Asterisk is awesome because we have an Asterisk World at IT Expo, but we want people to come and feel that whatever their need is, they can find a solution. It's vendor agnostic, and they'll walk away ahead of their competition who did not come to the show. So that's why people come to the show. So people continue to come to the show. And like what David said a little bit earlier, IT Expo is now 20 years or so old as well. We launched it in 98 timeframe, 98, 99. So it's, these shows generally don't last more. Tech shows go 5-10 years, but our event is popular and growing because we are constantly in reinvention mode. I think out of all the telecom events or telecom slanted and even the IT events I went to last year, all of them, for the most part, their attendance was lower than prior years. And we happen to have a nice increase, and hopefully that will continue next year. So,
I think another thing with IT Expo, Rich, is the ability to keep the general and the specific held in tension in terms of the expo floor is very general. There are, of course, some specific areas. We have the Asterisk Pavilion and things like that. But those individual tracks, the Asterisk World Track, the M2M, the IoT, the different individual tracks, people will be drawn by those individual tracks of specialization, and yet by osmosis, they will see the kind of, those very specific tracks, but by osmosis, they'll see the generalized picture when they come down to the expo floor. And just on a point of order, Rich, Asterisk, I wouldn't consider a single vendor event, Astricon, because we have an expo floor full of loads of different vendors. It is a kind of a single technology event, if you like, but it's all based around the Asterisk ecosystem.
Thanks for clarifying for me.
Just trying to help. But no, I'm very much looking forward to IT Expo, and it's a little bit later next year, isn't it? 2018. Is it the second week of February?
Correct. And I have it up on my screen because my memory and dates don't go well together. February 14th through 16th. Yeah, something people don't know about me is my ability to recall names, faces, and dates is non-existent. I have some other strengths which I'm still looking for, but names and faces are a major issue. So February 14th through 16th. So basically, with the segue of Valentine's Day, we'd love to have you all come down to South Florida.
And they won't break your heart.
Exactly. Exactly.
As I said before, when you were away, David, that ClueCon is conflicting with the Jewish holiday coming up this week. So
yeah, you mean Astricon, Moshe?
I'm sorry, Astricon. Sorry, but because by the way, ClueCon is almost every year also conflicting with something. And
really, yeah, actually, from the UK, and I know to an extent it's true with the US. ClueCon comes bang in the middle of the UK school vacation, where all the flight prices are expensive, and it's quite a difficult thing. But having said that, it's a good event out there in Chicago to get to. And yeah, Moshe, I've taken on board, and we'll be feeding back to some of the people that set the dates that we should be trying to avoid some holidays and festivals.
Yeah.
But I would like to say, on a positive note, we've got David Bender speaking, and we specially facilitated him speaking tomorrow, the Tuesday, so that he could be back home for now. Which festival is it? Is it Yom Kippur?
No, Sukkot. Yom Kippur is already passed. Yeah.
Feast of Booths.
Yeah.
Sukkot. Okay. What I was saying, Suzanne, is that when we were talking about voice over IP or even video over IP, that was great. But as we've moved along with WebRTC, we're now talking about a data channel as well. And so I guess that's one of the reasons why people like Randy might have moved the naming conventions along a bit, because IP communication kind of covers everything, whether it's voice, video, or data.
I really appreciated talking with all of you, and I'm looking forward to getting to Orlando and seeing who is going to be in Orlando. I know, David, you are there. Are you coming? Are you going to be able to come, Rich and Washington?
My team's going down. I've got a bunch of people there already. Right. I think my team about 30, 40 minutes ago, I had at least one person get there, so I'm assuming my whole team's there by now. So, yeah.
There'll be a good number of TMC folk around the place, along with all the Asterisk community and the Digium team. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, we can't wait. I hope you have an amazing show, Dave. I know you're Your numbers look good going in, so I think you're going to have a bang-up event, everyone. If you haven't made plans to get down there, get down there. Suzanne, was this going to get posted in time for us to plug the show, or is it too late?
Go ahead, yeah. Everybody, talk about what's important before we close it out. Yeah.
Go to Astricon, and then when you're done, go to IT Expo, and then drop by Moshe's sites and make sure that you check out all his software services. He's got some great stuff. His data center moves one step ahead of the hurricanes. He's always ahead of them, and you won't be disappointed.
Okay.